Last week, we passed the halfway point of the first 100 days of the Biden administration. And what have we seen so far? A humanitarian crisis at the border, the cancellation of thousands of jobs in the energy sector, direct attacks on American liberties and our God-given rights, the continued devaluation of the American dollar, and a record amount being added to the national debt. The Biden administration has also helped create irresponsible bailouts of pension funds and major cities across the nation and have helped pledge to ensnare the American economy due to a radical environmental agenda that was recently amplified by the freak storm in Texas. Yes, folks, there are consequences to elections and even those stolen elections, but there's also the Constitution, and until the Constitution is rewritten or the people decide to abolish their current form of government, there are government limitations which need to be obeyed. We'll get into that in this episode of Analysis Behind the News, where we provide the perspective and the plan to help restore American liberty and independence. The Epoch Times reported yesterday that Honduran migrants were trying to illegally cross the border because President Biden encouraged them to come. Biden promised us that everything was going to change. Gladys Oneida Perez Cruz, a woman who traveled to the border with her child, told the New York Times on Sunday. He hasn't done it yet, but he is going to be a good president for migrants, wrote the Epoch Times. The article also said, according to the paper, the New York Times, another woman claimed, Biden promised us. The Epoch Times also reported that the Department of Homeland Security said in an update, since April 2020, the number of encounters at the border has been rising due to ongoing violence, natural disasters, food insecurity, and poverty in the Northern Triangle countries of Central America. The DHS is missing one important element here: the fact that thousands of participants in caravans are streaming northward after President Biden has done all he could to cancel President Trump's efforts to stop illegal incentives. You don't get this kind of activity without some kind of organization. We've discussed this in previous episodes when Trump was president. Remember that when the caravans were heading northward, Trump warned the leaders of Central America and Mexico to do more to stop the caravans. Then he cut $500 million in foreign aid to El Salvador, Guatemala, and Honduras. You can imagine that to pull these caravans together takes a lot of resources and organization. The New American reported in 2019, there's another aspect to the continuing flow of aid that few consider. Many aid agencies have successfully created means to cash in on that flow, as revealed in the 2016 documentary Poverty, Inc. The 90-minute film, which won numerous awards worldwide, reveals the creation and operation of the multi-billion-dollar poverty industrial complex that has been built up around those billions of dollars being transferred from U.S. taxpayers to corrupt governments in foreign countries every year. It's not charity, it's a business, and a highly profitable one at that. In addition to lining the pockets of foreign dictators, a significant amount of those foreign aid dollars goes to NGOs, non-governmental organizations, some of which are helping support the migrant caravans. If those funds could be cut off or greatly reduced, then perhaps those caravans might not pose such a threat to the country's southern borders. Now, it wouldn't be a stretch to think that Biden is doing what he can to restore that funding, perhaps even through the $1.9 trillion reckless COVID-19 stimulus bill that was passed by Congress last week. Now, we've not confirmed that, but it is just a gut hunch. In a 2018 episode, we exposed the Democratic Socialist organizers of the caravans and suggested to you that this type of mass movement was meant to overwhelm the current system and get Congress to act. Now that Dems have nearly the numbers to do whatever they want to in Congress, including amnesty for illegal aliens and perhaps fast-tracking citizenship for asylum seekers, what will stop them? A 60-vote filibuster threshold in the Senate? Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer said over the weekend that if Republicans continue to provide opposition, then Democrats will seek to reform the filibuster, perhaps opening the floodgates to a tidal wave of unconstitutional legislation aimed at gutting your rights, liberties, and freedoms. So what do? Wait until 2022 to make changes, assuming that our election infrastructure has been repaired Absolutely not. Our opposition is organized, and so must we be. The founders gave us a way in Article 6 to measure the constitutionality of legislation coming out of Congress. The founders wrote in Article 6, "This Constitution and the laws of the United States which are made in pursuance thereof shall be the supreme law of the land." Meaning that if the laws are not made in accordance with the Constitution, then they are not the law of the land. The founders also wrote in supporting documentation that states need to only ignore these unconstitutional laws or to act evasively in nullifying them. Now, the New American reported yesterday that this is happening in Texas, and that Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton is suggesting it is up to the states to save this country from President Biden's liberal and illegal wish list. The Office of the Attorney General of Texas stands ready to lead in that mission. The New American wrote, Paxton is relying in part on one of the Republic's founders to build his case. James Madison, the father of the Constitution, wrote in the Federalist No. 45, "The powers reserved to the several states will extend to all the objects which, in the ordinary course of affairs, concern the lives, liberties, and the properties of the people. And when the federal or national or central government threatens the rights of the sovereign citizens of a state," wrote Paxton, "I am proud to lead the way for Texas in providing the necessary counterweight to the far-left Democrats forcing dangerously radical policies upon us." He promised, "Texas will use every legal means necessary to force the Biden administration to adhere to the rule of law and will seek to block any executive action or legislation that does not do so." It was Madison who proposed the Ninth Amendment to the Constitution. The enumeration in the Constitution of certain rights shall not be construed to deny or disparage others retained by the people. Madison's concerns are the same as Paxton's. A federal government seeking to reach beyond the powers enumerated in Article 1 threaten the liberty of every citizen of every state. Some of the founders were concerned that enterprising politicians could say that just because a certain right was not listed in the Bill of Rights, it therefore didn't exist. The 10th Amendment further clarified the issue. The powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited by it to the states, are reserved to the states respectively or to the people. The basic assumption the founders made was that there would be sufficient numbers of people such as Paxton who understood the threats to liberty posed by government and would take action to prevent the central government's attempted abrogation of individual rights and overreach of its enumerated powers. Many people argue against nullification and claim that it doesn't work. But as Paxton is demonstrating, and as many leaders across the country have shown during the COVID-19 government lockdowns, it absolutely does work. It frees citizens from the clutches of tyranny. This tool definitely will block the unconstitutional laws, edicts, orders, and regulations coming out of the federal government. As a matter of fact, the founders agreed that the states were duty-bound to use this. Now, to learn more about how this process works, we ask you to download our free Article 6 booklet, and then join the John Birch Society to work with many others across the country working on this very same thing in the state houses and local governments. Links are in the video description, or head over to jbs.org/6not5 and look for action tools. The booklet will appear on the bottom right of the screen. Also, last week, I made a mistake in the election integrity video, and thank you to the astute viewers who caught it and noted it in the comment section. I said that election powers were not mentioned in Article 1 for Congress. However, I overlooked Section 4, which mentions that Congress can alter certain regulations with law. Nevertheless, the fact remains that Congress cannot take on powers delegated to the states, which was the point of the video. I do apologize for the error, and again, thank you for pointing it out. So in conclusion, who do you know that cares about freedom and independence? Because it is time to act. The very survival of our republic depends on it. I'm Bill Hahn for the John Birch Society. Until next time, stay informed, stay active, and stay safe, Patriots.